We talked about it's National Back to Church Sunday, which makes me kind of laugh and cringe all at the same time, like it's a thing. But that's why, of course, I had to make sure we had pretzels. And when I called to Thrive and said, hey, the pretzel machine, they're like, yeah, it's available. So we went and grabbed pretzels, and I went, that's kind of my comfort food, a soft pretzel. Some of you are disgusting. To do the cinnamon and sugar with cheese and honey mustard that I saw a few people doing, it's like I'm a soft pretzel connoisseur, so but no judgment, but you're being judged a lot by me this morning. But I hope you get a chance to enjoy your soft pretzel. I hope you get a chance to just today lean into what God has for you. I'm excited. We're doing this Living the Dash series, and in the midst of all the craziness of the season of life that Jamie and I personally are in, because, it's only fitting that Matt Shepard's here. As Matt texted a few weeks ago and said, don't you have, 5 extra free minutes in your week for Jackson to run cross country? And so now we're running cross country too. So we added one more thing to that. So thanks, Matt. I will thank you later. Punches for the pastor will thank you. No, I'm just kidding. But we just thank you for all of you guys as a church, surrounding in the middle of the things, your season of life that you're going into, that we take a minute and we have a place on Sundays that we can take a deep breath and we can worship God together. I do want to have a quick little thing before I talk about Living the Dash. Sorry, Kelly, I threw you way off. Yesterday, I had the honor of doing a wedding for Greg and Rebecca Yancer, who are part of One Church. So we want to celebrate them. They're obviously not here because they wanted to go on a honeymoon. How selfish of them on Pretzel Sunday to go on a honeymoon. But Jamie and I got a chance to go and celebrate with them. Luckily, I brought a different shirt to wear because wearing a suit in yesterday's heat was miserable. But I love them. So we got a chance to celebrate. It was a great time to share that. So if you see them around town or see them, or when they come back into the building, you can say, hey, it's official. You guys are married now. And we have another wedding, but we'll talk about that next week, coming up within the church. So it's an exciting time. But as I said, we're talking about living the dash. And the entire idea of living the dash is that dash between when you started your life and when God calls you home. And are we truly leaning into that? Are we leaning into that little dash that's on your gravestone or whatever? Are we leaning into that what God has for us and truly living that the way he has called us to live? That dash to me, there's certain days and it's difficult because we fill our days so busy with all of the different things. And leaning on that dash, we struggle. And this week we're talking about how to train and how to be ready for the seasons, how to be ready when things kind of fall apart. And we're going to go deeper into all those other parts of that in the next few weeks. But oftentimes when we look at being prepared, the Bible talks a lot about training and running the race, and we do that. And we've talked even as a church about the training, and we ran it into, or we've used the, running mentality or the sports mentality oftentimes, because my head doesn't go with running because it makes no sense to me why you would run in a circle and come back to the same spot you started at. And why would if I'm going to run, I'm running away from danger. That is the only part of me that I will ever run. If you see me on a track, know that there's a bear running behind me on that said track. There's no reason to go in a circle. No offense to the runners out there. It just doesn't make sense to me. Cross country does, because you're running through the woods, so I think there's actually a bear. So I try to tell my son, cross country, the best thing you can do is imagine there's a bear coming out of the woods at you and just stay in front of that. But to me, when I was preparing for this week, and I was talking about the training and thinking about the training that God has for us in the Bible, and then many times he does that, my brain went to more of a college class mentality. For some of you, if you went to college, or if you plan to go to college someday, or even think of the high school, the mentality that you have in the fact that we go into that class with an idea that we're hoping to learn something and be better, and when we come out of that class, we're well prepared. Well, some of the parts that fall apart in this entire mentality, or this illustration, is one, if you're enroll in the class, meaning you accept Jesus Christ, the good news is you can't fail the course. That's kind of the college classes I always look for when the people said there's no possible way to fail that class. And I had a college roommate that took that challenge seriously, and he failed. But this one is true. If we lean into this, you can't fail the class. The bad news is there's also no dropping the course until you die. So the entire idea of that I'm today for the training I want us to lean into is our life, our time on earth here is kind of one big college course that we're taking. So at the beginning of the course that you take in college, right, the first day, those that, unless it's changed dramatically, but between my bachelor's and my master's, every class, the first day is always, or elementary school teachers, the first day, what does the professor do? He sets the expectations, right? He sets out the syllabus. He gives you all of what is going to happen, how that looks like, and that's what the Bible does for us. If you dive into the Word, God sets the expectations. He tells us that being a Christian is going to be difficult. That as we train and we live the dash, that it's going to be difficult. He does not promise that this is going to be an easy course. Your time on earth, he never says, is going to be great. It's going to be wonderful. I'm going to give you the greatest job. I'm never going to have you have any trials, any tribulation, anything. No, God tells us we're going to have that. So we have to set the expectation up that living the dash and living that life that God has called for us isn't going to be easy, it's going to be challenging. There's going to be struggles. There's going to be issues that we face. And we have to have that understanding. The best part of my time in elementary, junior high, high school, college, whatever, was when you had a really good teacher. I think when I say that and I tell you, everybody in this room, and I say, think of your best teacher you ever had, right? Like our mind goes to somebody. It was never the teacher that was mean. It was never the teacher, like some of my good professors and good teachers were tough, were difficult, but they pushed you through and they gave you an understanding. I remember in college, I really, really struggled. I had a college professor that I sat down with and I struggled every single day to understand. I think of the same thing in high school. I had a high school teacher in chemistry, and every day I would come early and I would try to learn and I would try to understand, and I just couldn't get it. And he's like, you'll get it soon, and I never got it. I never understood it. Those struggles that we have, there's times of living the dash that you're going to live and you're not going to understand. You're not going to understand why you're going through it. But the closer you have a relationship with God and the more you talk to him, something beautiful happens. You start to understand. You start to get it. You start to understand that living this dash, right? Like me in my 40s are very, very different. I can't see Nate because of the thing. Nate, we talked about this yesterday, right? Like the things that we looked at when Nate was at the wedding and we had a great talk during whatever appetizer hour, whatever that was. I don't even really understand what we're eating because it was a fancy wedding beyond me. But we're sitting there, we're having the conversation of 15 years ago, I knew Nate. And if we would say where we are right now, we wouldn't understand. But now, with our knowledge and now with our understanding and now with living the dash and living this life of God, I understand. My life makes more sense now because I've leaned into that and I asked God to help me. I asked God to do that. And it's just that same way of like when you have a good teacher that helps you click, that helps you understand. That when you have a college professor, Dr. Shutt was my college professor for science in college. I did not go into college thinking I wanted to be a middle school science teacher. I didn't go into there thinking that, but I had a class with him and I loved the way he brought everything to life. And we sat in this giant auditorium with 100 other students learning science. And he sat there and he's like, okay. And he picked one person in the middle and said, you're the sun, you're the center of my universe. And he walked around and he said, what season am I not? Like he did all these wonderful analogies of how to teach science. And I walked out of that class every day going, that was fun. That was exciting. And so as my education went more and more, and as I got into my junior year, I said, I want to be a science teacher like Dr. Shutt. I want to bring that passion because he started to explain stuff. And when a class went really, really bad and I struggled, I went into his office and I sat down and I sat there and I had a conversation with him, and he explained why he did what he did, and he let me talk, and we had this great relationship. So living the dash, I want you to understand, is leaning into that and understanding that I don't know everything now, but God is going to walk through that with me, and as I lean more and more. So my 4 points that I'm going to hit today, that I want to talk about today, and as we live the dash and as we train and as we strive to be better, is I looked up because I always love to give advice to kids that are going off to college. I try to catch up with them, and we go out and usually try to catch their favorite meal and just have a little bit of a conversation. So this year I was looking up and I said, what is the best advice to give somebody that's going away to college? And I found this article, and now I'm going to relate it to the best way to live your dash. The first bit of advice for somebody going away to college says, as a Christian, read godly literature. So Romans 15:4 tells us, for whatever was written in the past was written to teach us, so that through the endurance taught in the scriptures and the encouragement they provide, we may have hope. So God right there in Romans is telling us, get into the Word. Read the Word. Open your Bible. Do those things. We talk about it every week. If your only spiritual food you're getting is coming here on Sunday morning, there's a problem. You're not truly living the dash. You need to get into the Word. You need to read your Bible throughout the week. You need to find other books, and if you need help, I will gladly help find books that will go along with the biblical things that we're talking about to help encourage you. There are so many books out there. There's so many things that help go alongside that. Just like a college course, you get in your syllabus, here's the list of the 50 books. It always felt like 50, maybe it was 5, that you had to read. And I would sit there and I would be like, my first question, I would always ask somebody that already took the course, how many of these books do I really have to buy and read? And the classes that they said, you don't have to read any of them, I knew weren't serious. But when they said, you need all those books, you need to read all those books because they're very, very important, you understood the importance of that class. There's literally nobody in this room that will understand this analogy. Ryan, do you remember new student orientation at Taylor? You had to read some really weird books, didn't you? And I sat there and I tried to do this thing where I'm like, I'm not going to read these books. I refuse to read some of these weird books. And I got halfway through the semester and I realized I was failing the class because I needed to read those books. You had to read the books. You literally went to 1 hour a week, a discussion group where you discussed the books. And I thought, I'm good at this. I can sit here and fake it. Yeah, second week, the professor went, you've never read this book, have you? No, I kind of, you never read this book. Yeah, no, I read the, and he goes, get out of this, get out. And I looked at him and I said, no, I'll do better, I'm sorry. And he's like, no, get out now. And I looked at him and I said, no, I promise. And he said, if you're not going to read the book, then you are worthless to everybody else in this room because you don't have the knowledge to have an open discussion. I would like you to leave this room right now. And I went out and this is back before cell phones. Yes, I'm that old. So I went back to my dorm room and what did I do? I called my mom. And I said, Mom, I just got kicked out of class. She said, you've never gotten in trouble ever in school and you get kicked out of college? Yes, I got kicked out of college. And I went and met with the professor and he's like, I'm not trying to be mean, but if you're not going to read the book, I can't help you. I can't help you get the knowledge that you need if you're not going to read the book. And the same goes for you. As the pastor of this church, if you're not going to get in the Bible, I can't help you. If you're not going to read and find books, I can't help you. You need to be in there because I could be making this all up. I could be, and if you don't know that Romans 15:4, there may be only 14 chapters in Romans. But you need to know because that's what's important for your faith. You need to understand that God has something for you. You need to be in the Bible. You need to be in books. You need to understand and read godly literature. The second bit of advice that they said that all college students need to know is they need to learn how to ask questions. If you want to know how to ask questions, it's a fun name to say in the Bible. Habakkuk is an entire book where he asks God questions. The entire thing, it's actually kind of entertaining to read. If you go, hey, I don't know what book to dive into, it's going to be a little complicated, but it's a fun one because the entire thing is a conversation between him and God, asking questions. And it starts off at chapter 1, 2, and 3. Must I forever see these evil deeds? Why must I watch all this misery? Whatever I look at, I see destruction and violence. I'm surrounded by the people who love to argue and fight. Again, kind of feels like our political climate here in the United States, right? I'm surrounded by people that just want to fight. And then, spoiler, you're going to have to go in there. God responds back with his knowledge of saying, this is the reason what I see. And the entire book is about asking questions. If you don't ask questions, you can't grow. I hate it more than anything as a coach. And I sit there with these young 11, 12, 13, 14-year-olds that coaching my kids and their friends. And I hate it more than anything where I look at a kid. Sorry, Pearson, and Jason, I'm not throwing you two under the bus. It's the other players on the team. But when I look at them and I say, okay, I need you to do this. Do you understand? And they go, yeah. Okay, you understand. I need you to do this. Yeah, I got it. And then we do the next play, and they don't do it. Okay, do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, again, Jason and Pearson, you guys have never done this to me. Never. I need you to understand, they have never done it. Every other kid on the team does this. And I sit there and I'm like, okay, I need you to ask me a question. Like, ask me what okay, am I doing it right? No, ask me a question. Like, you need to do that. We as Christians in our faith, we need to ask questions. We need to sit there and go to somebody and go, am I doing this right? Am I saying this right? That's the way we grow. We have to humble ourselves and say, yes, I don't fully understand how this works. I do the same thing. I've taken how many Bible courses? You better believe from time to time, probably at least twice a month, I reach out to some of my pastors that are mentors that are older that have done this, and I said, am I hitting this right? Am I reading this scripture right? Am I talking about this right? I go to some of my friends and I ask those questions. We have to do that as Christians. To live the dash, we have to be able to ask questions. The third thing they tell all college students they need to do is plan ahead. This one's hard. I feel like Jamie's working on pretzels so she can't shoot daggers through my eyes right now. You have to plan ahead. You have to be prepared. You have to be ready when things happen. I understand that I'm not great at planning ahead, so I married somebody that is uber good at planning ahead. I'm pretty sure she has the next 50 years of our life figured out. If she doesn't, she has at least a rough outline of what it will look like. She probably even knows when I'm going to die. I don't know. But Proverbs 2:11 and 12 says, planning ahead will protect you, and understanding will guard you. These will keep you from following the wrong path and will protect you from those who have evil plans. We have to understand. We have to plan ahead. We have to be prepared. I've shared this before. One of the best bits of advice my sister ever gave me when I went to college was I was going to the same college she went to, and I said, Patty, what is it that I need to do? Like, gave me a little bit of advice. And as the older sister, she said, I'm going to tell you right now, you need to be prepared. You need to do this. You need to do this. Gave me all this advice. And she said, and know that first weekend, and some of you that went to college, I gave you the same advice she gave me. That first week that you're at class, that you're at college, you're going to do something really, really, really stupid. So just plan on it, then it won't make you feel so bad. And sure enough, the first week of college, I've shared this story before, Taylor has a chapel 3 times a week. Is it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if I remember right? I feel like I'm so old, so I'm looking at Ryan, right? Like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So the first Monday came, and I went to my morning class, and I went back, and I went, wow, there's literally nobody on campus. Where's everybody at? And I went and took a little power nap and got ready for my next class. And I came out of the dorm, and I walked out of the dorm, and right across from my dorm is the chapel doors. And they threw open, and out walked the entire student body. I missed the first ever chapel my freshman year because I completely forgot about it. And I did the little, okay, I'm going to hide behind this tree, and then I'm going to jump out, and I'm going to just act like I went to chapel too. And I just finally went, no, I'm an idiot. And I looked at my roommate and I said, he goes, what'd you think of chapel? I said, I didn't go. I forgot. Like, you plan ahead. You got to understand that things are going to happen. You have to be ready for them. You have to plan because God orchestrates that. But he also goes, hey, I'm going to walk through this with you. You have to be prepared. You have to be ready for those moments. And it was easier for me to lean into my mistake when I knew that it was going to just happen. The fourth thing that they said that I thought was a weird way to put this was join a home group. So pretty much as I read more into it, it was saying Find a group of people. Find where your home is away from home. Find that group of people that you just connect with, that you're part of, and that's what we're going to be kicking off here in the next few months at One Church, is some small groups and some ways for you to get connected if you haven't had any other way to get connected. Find your group of people. Yes, as a church, we do life together, but it's important to find people with the same, in that same thought, that same process, the same people that will inspire, right? Like Jamie and I talk about that all the time for our kids and for our family. We love doing life together with so many different families, but we also strive to find people that have kids that are older than our kids so our kids can look up to them. And we also try to find families that have kids younger than ours that our kids can then invest in too. We do it on purpose. We try to find that group. We try to find that home group, that group of people. Hebrews 10, 11, 12 says, let us think the ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together, but encourage one another, especially now that his return is drawing near. So let us find ways that we can encourage each other. Let us find ways. So those conversations in that home group are important to find a group of people that you have. But the second part of that is it healthy? Is it a group of people that spur you on to be better? Is it a group of people that when you meet with them and you say, oh, I'm really struggling with this, they go, yeah, me too, and you walk away? Or is it somebody that says, let me pray with you? I know you're struggling, let me help you with that. And then they also come to you and say, can you help me? It's finding that group of people that you're doing life together with, that you are encouraging each other. And it may be a big group of people, or some of you are more introverted and you go, it's one person. And you say, you know what, I'm going to find a time to meet with this one person, and we're going to discuss what God is doing in our life. Doing that in a Christian way, I need to just prefix this, and we're going to talk a whole lot more, doesn't need to be complicated and hard. You don't need to have a thick 3-ring binder of Bible study notes that you're going to meet together and you're going to pray and go through all of this Bible study. It can literally be going and having coffee and talking about how life's going, and at the end say, how can I pray for you this week, and how can you pray for me? It doesn't have to be complicated. We have a group of guys that meet on Thursdays, and I have been missing more than I've been going, but we get together and we have lunch and we talk about all the different things, and we close with that very thing of, how can I pray for you this week? What's going on in your life that I can help you be better? When we do that, we live the dash. We lean into that and we get the most out of it, because living the dash is so important. That part right there, that dash between representing our time here, is so important. And there's so many regrets that we live with. I believe every single one of us, no matter our age, can look at a point in our time that we regret something that happened so far. It's such a minute time. So let's get the most of it. Let's lean into it and say, and I don't know about you, but this last week, I encouraged us last week, if you were here or if you watched online, I encouraged us to wake up every morning and say, God, what would you have for me today? So really quickly, that went really, really bad for me this week. Went really, really bad, and I struggled with it because probably 5 of the 7 days I woke up in the morning and said, God, what is it that you would have for me? In a couple of the days it went really, really well. And I need to be honest with you, Tuesday came, and Tuesday I was so excited. I woke up, Jamie and the kids left. There's certain people in this room that are already laughing because they know how my Tuesday went. But Jamie and the kids left at 7:30, and I was like, I'm going to lean into my sermon point. I'm going to say, God, what is it that you have for me today? I am going to, and so I sat there and I prayed to God, and I sat in my comfortable chair and I broke out some notes. I read some Bible verse. I said, God, what would you have for me? What would you have for me? And then I got out my notebook and I got ready because we had a board meeting here at church at 9:30, and I said, okay, God, what would you have for me today? And I wrote down some stuff I wanted to tell the board because I was really excited about things that were going, and I went, okay, God, what would you have for me today? And I just kept sitting there, and I'm like, God, put somebody in my path, put a conversation, put a text message. And I got in my car, and I got to the end of the road, and I was heading to the church for the board meeting, and I got a text message. And I actually got excited because I was like, okay, this is the moment, right? And I pull out my phone, and it was somebody who said, hey, da-da-da-da-da, can you come get the pretzels in the machine a little bit earlier? Oh, yeah, I'll make that happen. And I got to the end of my road, and mind you, again, I was going to the church board meeting, right? And I got to the end of my road, and I went, yeah, I'll do that. And I took off, and I texted my friend Chris, who I know lately he's looking for a job, and I texted him. I said, hey, do you want to ride along with me? We can talk, and we can share some stuff. And he said, yeah, I'd love that. So I drove over to Chris's house, and he jumped in, and we were driving, and he knew what we were doing, and we're heading, and we got 2/3 of the way to Mount Pleasant, and he looked at me, and he said, and made some comment about, how's this coaching going that you've been having this guy help you and the board? I said, it's going great. And then my face went white. And he said, what? And I said, I have a board meeting that started 40 minutes ago. And we're supposed to be talking with that coach that you just talked about. And so I did a 180 on M20, dumbest thing to do on that road, right? And I went speeding back, and I was like, I got mad, and I sat there, and he lives 1.5 miles off 9 Mile or off M20, and I said, hey, I got to get back, and he's like, just drop me off. And he's a runner and all that. And I said, I'm not dropping you off. And he said, then I'm just jumping out of the car. And I said, no, I will take you back home. And he's like, go to your meeting, drop me off. And so I dropped him off, and he eventually did make it home, I found out, I think yesterday. But I was speeding, and I sat there, and I got a text message from some of the board members like, hey, are you coming? And I'm like, and my mind went to lie. Make up an excuse, talk about somebody, I'm at the hospital, helping this person that's dying, or I'm doing this, or like my dog, like I was thinking like all the million excuses, and I'm like, no, I screwed up. I asked God what you'd have for me today, and apparently it was missing a board meeting that I was supposed to be at. And I went through so much, but God just leaned, the time after that, and them and different board members encouraging me, but also just leaning into it going, hey, you can't fill your life so possibly full that you're truly not hearing what you would have. And Chris is an amazing friend, and he honestly, his entire text messages was, well, God obviously wanted you on M20 because he wanted to protect you. Like he was like coming up with like a power line was going to fall on your car if you went the other way or whatever. And it's like, thanks, Chris, but whatever. But, right? Like living the dream is difficult. Living the dash is difficult. Living the dash, those seasons, but we have to lean into that and understand that God has something for us. And when we can do all of those things, God will be seen. And we have to trust, and we have to know. So the time that you put into God, the time that you do that, the time of reading the word, the time of asking questions, the times of planning ahead, the times of being in a life group, joining together is so vitally important. And as we continue to work on living the dash, if nothing else today, I want you to understand, there was an old cheesy song that my mom would always play for me. It was a Christian cassette called The Music Machine. Anybody else have their mom make you listen to this? Okay, good, I'm the only one. And it had a really cheesy song at the end that said, input, output, what goes in must come out. And I'd sing it, thank you, D, for somebody knowing that I'm not messed up today. I messed up mostly, but the song was by Music Machine. And if nothing else today, my heart for you is to understand in living the dash, in living the season that God would have for you, what you put in must come out. If you're reading the word, if you're spending time with God, if you're talking to him, if you're with your friends are really just seeking what is it that God would have and encouraging each other, that's what's going to come out of you. That's what's the output. That's what's going to happen. So I encourage us to lean into what God has for us. Put those wonderful things in so that God will be seen as our output. Pray with me, won't you? Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for today. Thank you for yummy pretzels. Thank you for people striving to be more like you. Thank you for the reminder of that we need to truly live this dash for you, God. We thank you for being there in those moments of celebration. We also thank you for those moments that we just feel like we're not enough. God, we just ask that you be with us in situations that we're going to face this week, that your will be done. And God, we just ask too that we prioritize and make sure we're putting more of you in our hearts and our lives, so that the world will see you and what comes out of us. It's in your strong and powerful name we pray. Amen.